mixing your feed to ensure that it's balanced enough for your animals. So, for instance, as a human being, when you are eating, you want to balance between protein, fats, and oil, carbohydrates. The same applies for your your animal feed. So this is the remains of beans, which means that is our source of protein. This actually contain about 8 to 15% of protein. So that is to say, as a human being, this, if you were to be a human being, that is your protein. Then we are adding dosa. Dosa, it's a popular name, but basically that is maize bran. So maize, as you know, is a source of carbohydrates. So you mix these carbohydrates with protein. In this case, your protein is from beans, and your carbohydrates is from maize. So just like I always say, we human beings, you make sure that the carbohydrate is much more than the protein, because so much protein for goats and ruminants generally can cause them stomach upset, and this can actually lead to their death. So if the carbohydrate is like is going to be 70% of the feed, then the protein is like 30% of the feed. So in this case, you mix 30% of beans and about 70% of maize bran to make a fully balanced feed with protein and also carbohydrates. Although some people can give the dosa as a separate feed and also the beans chaff as separate feed, but these simple things are what makes the difference. So instead of giving them only dosa, which is just carbohydrate, you mix protein. In this case, the protein source is your beans. It could also be kuli. I think kuli is also popular. You could crush kuli and mix it with your carbohydrates. In this case, you have a feed of carbohydrates and also protein. But with the kuli, it has to be far less. It has to be like 5% or less of the feed. So if this was to be kuli, it means that if you have this basket full, you just have a few handfuls to make like 5% of the entire feed, and thoroughly you mix, so that, because if you don't mix them and you serve, it will mean that some of the animals will just eat only the dosa and the others will eat only the the beans. So but once you mix it like this, you get a homogeneous mixture, which means that you have a balanced feed for your animals. I've always maintained that feeding is probably one of the most important aspects, the most important pillars of animal farming, because the way you feed your animals is the way they look.